We're not starting. I'm just testing the mic. Thank you.
That is interesting. She did say that she didn't want to go to because she could. She was probably coming. Maybe she went to the room or something. I saw her nephew earlier. He's at the stairs looking young man.
He's not here. Who did you see?
Hmm?
He didn't come?
Earlier this morning when we were
He didn't come. He was coming, and he didn't come yesterday.
he was taking pictures when we were. Hi, good to see you. Oh, okay.
Too. I'm
Oh,
so glad to see you. You
thank
holding
you.
up? You've been going since Thursday night.
Yep. I went to the room yesterday and took me a nap. I know I take care of me.
Yeah, he was taking pictures of us outside of Tate Hall.
When she
He
came
didn't come
yesterday,
up.
he didn't come. So what's his name? He didn't come. He was gonna come. He told he decided he wasn't coming, and he took his stuff out the car yesterday. But she didn't come till yesterday. She got here yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And said if he was coming, he had put his stuff in the car, and he changed his mind.
Oh,
I
okay.
told him he
Oh,
probably would have
maybe
been
that was
bored.
someone else's
Yeah,
relative.
yeah,
Okay.
probably because it was
Oh,
so
okay.
many of them here.
Well, here, I'll put this here so you can reach it too.
I talked to him Thursday. Boots. What is the page? What page I talked to?
The ladies at the table don't have to talk.
That's what they told me. It was for the book signing.
I thought, well, when I saw that's what I figured it was for.
Well, because I asked her, I said, what they came by here for? She said, it's for the book signing. I said, oh, you mean for Rick?
Well, something
Well,
must have happened. Oh, well, I remember when my niece used to do that for Bennett. She majored in library sciences and media. She's a media specialist. But in all the programs at Bennett, she was behind the microphones and cameras.
yep, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Media. That's the thing
yeah.
we have to do
And
all
she
that up
started
under.
it. built a hotel on Marshmallow. And
Kid
so,
Boy did?
money, 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 money. And so they really kind of have bailed them out. They're just about back on their feet. Because, you know, my sister married the dean of Alumni. They met in accounting class. So I know everything that's going on. He contacts alumni all over the country, and every graduation, he's up on the DS, shakes their hands and gives them a good hug. They're just about back. They built a nice hotel on the campus, and the students operate it, so that's like part of their business management type program. Nice building, really nice. Yeah, that Olympic, there were times we didn't even take a shower. Did not. They might have only paid it twice a year. It was rough down there.
I read about it.
It was really rough. So now Trevi has retired. You know, that's the baby mama used to live. My sister. She has changed downtown around. She was in the accounting department at Georgia State University. She tore down all those old hotels downtown, built new dormitories, and when the Olympics was here, she was on the committee that went to get the money from the Olympics to turn it over to Georgia State University so they can turn those Georgia Tech Olympic dormitories into Georgia State University dormitories. The last thing she did before she retired was buy the old uh, baseball field. You know where Hank Aaron made the home run? She bought that
Oh,
and turned that over to
Mexico.
Georgia State University.
That's Christy.
So we nicknamed her the Money's Girl in the family because she got a lot. You see Chris?
She's coming. She should be at the door by now.
And that's interesting.
You see, when I left, she was talking. When I left her, she was inside talking in the dining hall.
I see
Then
it now.
she came outside, and I went on and got in the golf cart, and rode down here.
That's interesting. A classmate here to see. Hey, there she goes. That's, I wonder if she coming in. I wonder if she coming in. There she is. Okay, I can slide down. I can slide down. There, is that enough room for her to get on? Oh, okay.
Well, welcome to Pierce Chapel, and thank you for being here today for what is the second opportunity to visit with those whom we call the First Five. On Thursday evening, our students filled Taylor Amphitheater, and some are back today. They were inspired by their chance to learn from those who paved the way for Wesleyan to become the richly diverse campus that it is today. We began in Taylor Amphitheater at 6:30, and then we moved over to Burden Parlor for coffee and dessert. And we didn't go home until almost 9:30. After hearing their stories, the students began to tell their stories. And I tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the room when we went home that night. It was a moving experience for all of us. I want to say a special word of thanks to Reverend Felicia Pearson Smith, class of 74, who serves on our Board of Trustees, and Dean Tanya Parker, class of 2001, who was our Chief Diversity Officer and Dean of Equity and Inclusion, who have organized these events, along with Sisters of the First Five, and you've met Naja Webb, who chairs the executive board of that group, and she'll speak a little bit later today. They've organized these events, but we couldn't have done this without the cooperation of these folks who have been honored already today and, and are here to be with us. Christine Everett, Dalena Taylor, and Sonia Tomlinson Holland. As we have gathered their stories in preparation for their 50th reunion, we've been touched by the powerful and uplifting memories they've shared with us, and I am so grateful that they're here to share them with you. After hearing from them, leaders of the Sisters of the First Five, Naja, you've met, and also Trustee Brendas Roberts, will make a special presentation. And then right after this session, Christine Everett will be selling her book, Prayers of Praise, with proceeds going to a special fund for Wesleyan students. Thank you all and welcome.
Good afternoon. So one thing that I thought was important for today is to put things into context, because sometimes history happens even if you're not planning on it happening. You just show up and history is made. That is the case for our first 5 graduates that stepped on the campus in 1968 in that fall. But let's just go back in our minds what just happened some months before that fall. April of 1968, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. So as you can imagine what was going on nationwide and how people were feeling and what was felt throughout the nation, and also schools were integrating. And Bibb County, the county in which Wesleyan is located here in Macon, Georgia, was no different. 47 schools in the district were going through a compromise of what integration would look like. And some of the students that integrated some of the schools here in Bibb County are actually honored and called Girls of Courage at the Tubman Museum. So while you're here, if you're able to go and see what happened with the Bivens case, Bivens versus the Board of Education, you will see photographs of the women who integrated the school system here in the middle schools and high school. Wow, that was in 1964, 65. It was in between that time, and then 1968. Our students that came here, and 3 of them present today that graduated in 1972. And so also in 1968, I want you all to know that President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act that followed the 1964 Civil Rights Act law, which was going to challenge discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin as it related to labor laws. The one in 1968 challenged housing discrimination. And because things needed to change, people were showing up, going into places where usually they were not accepted or welcomed. But the stories that I've been hearing from these wonderful women, Wesleyan actually opened doors, and there were people who nourished them throughout their whole process. And their story is beautiful. Is it painful at times? Yes. But they still were making history because they showed up. And because they showed up, doors opened, and more women who looked like them showed up. People like the Reverend Felicia Pearson, she showed up. People from the classes of their class and beyond, leading up to mine and beyond, they showed up. I am standing here as the Chief Diversity Officer for Wesleyan College because they showed up and opened the doors for me. And so I just want to say this, keep in mind that sometimes you just are doing what you normally do, but in the process, you may be making history. And if we want to celebrate that, by golly, we will. Amen? Amen. I felt like I just preached, but I didn't. Okay, we're going to pass it on to Reverend Felicia Pearson, and we'll get started from here. Thank you. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's take a deep breath if you walked over here.
there because they drive kind of fast. Well, I am so excited. I am really honored to be in this space. Oh, thank you. To be in this space and presence of these women. And we're going to hear about their stories. And I want to open this to kind of set the stage. And I have a friend in Atlanta. His name is Dan Crane. And he works for a group called One Race. And their whole focus is around reconciliation. And actually, it is a group of white pastors who have conversations with white pastors. So one day I went to their website and I saw this, and it said, "We must know the story, own the story, and change the story." And I have used that in so many ways, that we must know the story, own the story, and then we could change the story. And today, we're going to hear stories. Now, on Thursday night, Rochelle McLean, class of 75, worked with a project called the Afghan Women's Writers Project. And the purpose of that was to give women who didn't have a voice. And she did that by allowing them to tell their stories. Why do we tell our stories anyway? We tell our stories so people can be motivated, encouraged, inspired. We tell our stories so people don't feel alone, that you are not the only one that have gone through whatever you're going through. So you need to know your story. You need to own your story. And then you can work on change your story. Now, I can almost guarantee you, or maybe not guarantee you, we may talk about Bruno, I'm not sure. Well, some of you don't know what that is. That's a Disney movie. But anyway, but the whole point is that all of us have a story. And so today, Tanya gave a history of 1968. And I always like to do this, and I want to say this before we hear from each of them, is that we are here honoring them today. But there's a quote of a woman. Her name was Julia Cooper, and she wrote in a piece called Womanhood, Vital Element in Regeneration and Progress of a Race in 1892. And she's a black woman. And here's just what she said. She said, reflection is one moment in time that looks in three directions. Reflection looks backwards for wisdom, looks inward for strength, and looks forward in hope and faith. And this is the essence of our conversation today. And so a part of this story is the bigger story of Wesleyan College with Dr. W. Earl Strickland, a man of courage. And you know, being nosy like I am, I called Christy Peavy in archives. I wanted to know what was going on with the president of Wesleyan College during that time. And we started digging. And so when I found that, she sent me this manifesto that Dr. Strickland wrote in 1955, along with some other white pastors speaking out against segregation. It was a wonderful manifesto. It was a bold step. And many years later, because I believe that God is always at work around us, somehow this man of courage, somehow this president of this great school from 1836 started something, and things have not been the same. And these women stepped on this campus in 1968 because of Earl Strickland, our president of Man of Courage. And so he laid the foundation. Many others came before him, but we know that he laid the foundation. So much for me for talking right now anyway. And so we want to hear their story. So I'm going to ask each of them to tell us their name, introduce themselves, tell us what you did after leaving Wesleyan, you know, just a little something about who you are and what you did. And then we'll come back and we just want to hear your story. And so whoever wants to go first, and your majors, what you majored in. Okay? And so if you want to do that, who wants to start first? Okay?
I'll start first. My name is Sonia Tomlinson Holland, and I graduated in the class of 1972. I went on to get my master's degree at Georgia State University. I taught school in the DeKalb County school system and the Atlanta Public School System. During that time, I also, from age 6, interpreted to the deaf. I didn't do it when I was at Wesleyan, but I started again after Wesleyan because I was attending my home church. And I've done everything from go to court and interpret for them, married them. I even went on a date with one and interpreted for her date. She was the first deaf student to graduate from Spelman. She was a White House page, and when she left with Spelman, she enjoyed the Washington, D.C. area so much that she decided to go back and get a master's degree at Gallaudet, which is, to my knowledge, the only graduate school for deaf people in the United States. But I still do that, and I enjoy travel, and I, from time to time, come back and visit Wesleyan. I've had some interesting experiences coming back and visiting, but I won't go into that. I'll just on with Jean.
Hi, my name is Dalena Taylor. When I was at Wesleyan, I had a whole different name, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Some of my classmates, they still call me Jean. I answer, because that was my name. But we all, well, it was 5 of us that started in 1968. Should have been 6, and I'll let Chris tell you about that. But one of the young ladies decided she didn't want to come. She didn't want to do it. So the 5 of us did, and Chris always had a private room. She did. Couldn't nobody stay with her.
What was your major, Dr.
My major was, I had never known about psychology till I came to Wesleyan. I took a psychology course, and that was it. That was it. I decided that I wanted to, because I wanted to work with people that were, at that time, mentally challenged. They called them mentally retarded, deaf and dumb. I mean, they had all kinds of labels for people, but they could not teach them in the public school. So when I left Wesleyan, that's what I did. I went to, it was a training center, privately ran by one of the organizations, and they call that the Art in Bibb County. So that was what I had wanted to do, and I did that for 3 years in between having children. And I did that, and then I started working in social services, and I did that for a while. Worked in just about every type of social service that you can, including with DFACS and some of the other private agencies. So I've done that. We'll talk a little bit more.
Okay, great.
I'm having trouble with all of this because I was 15 years old when I was invited to come here. My mom and I kind of came up in a family of prayers, of people that prayed and believed in God. And my mother kept talking about God, and God will help us get there, and God will help you dream of being a teacher. And at 15, I wasn't into God, and I wasn't into her vision for me. So this is all very difficult because my journey is one of discovering not only faith, and my faith in God actually grew through this experience. And through prayer, we continue to pray, but I was invited to come to Wesleyan on a scholarship, on a grant for the 4 years. They were going to cover my tuition. So I wasn't thinking, let me go and integrate this school. That did not enter my mind. We got excited when she said, you have a letter here from Wesleyan College. I opened the letter, and it offered me a full tuition-paid scholarship. And we were so excited. I just remember being happy that a school had accepted me in Georgia, and they were going to pay me based on my grades and my academic background. And she said to me, and you can read this, I just went to get my story to remind myself of what I actually said. My story, I offered to write my story because we were on a Zoom call. Kathy Snow and all of us were preparing for how they could honor us. And of course, they contacted us and wanted us to give input. And I thought it would be a great time since we had been here and left and no one had actually had our story in writing. We were getting people asking us constantly, how'd you come, why'd you come, this and that. And of course, by that time, the newspapers were filled with negative things being said about Wesleyan. And it bothered me because I did not have a negative experience at Wesleyan. So I got concerned and I thought, and I said to Kathy, I'd like to tell my story just so people will know and understand my outlook and my take on what happened at Wesleyan, because I wasn't in agreement with all the negative stuff that I was hearing, all the negative publicity. And hold on a second. Oh, when I'm a teacher. The dream for teaching came to pass. I taught school in Georgia, North, South. I taught in DeKalb County. I taught children of all races and all ethnic backgrounds. I taught Chinese children. I taught Hispanics. I taught Jewish children. I taught all races. I taught Japanese children. There was a melting pot. Every time my class was assigned to me, I was the black teacher, and the children were all different races and nationalities and coming. And I knew in my heart that I was to be a teacher. It was my destiny. But the dream to teach became a reality because of that scholarship I got at Wesleyan. So I'm one of these people that like to focus on how kind Dr. Strickland was to me, how supportive, what a courageous man he was. I didn't see any racism from anybody here. The teachers were awesome. They were professionals. They treated me with love and respect. We had a good experience here. So when I hear all this stuff about Wesleyan College being having racism on the campus, and it just bothered me. I would love it if you please read my story, because my story is based on the truth of the wonderful experience I had here, my dream to become a teacher. And of course, my mom kept saying, I told you so, I told you God was going to. Yes, because we didn't have the money for me to come here. And yes, I wanted girls like me to have this opportunity, because if it were not for Wesleyan, I wouldn't have been a teacher. But then you think about all the lives I was able to touch, because my spiritual growth continued while I was here because of my big sister, Charlene Payne, who used to grab my hands, and I'd go to her room in tears about any little thing, because y'all know 15-year-olds make a big issue out of everything. So it could be a stub toe, it could be a B I got and thought it should have been an A, it could be anything. But she'd always grab my hands and say, Chris, let's pray. She'd put her books aside because she'd be busy with her work, but she'd never turn me away. And it was that kind of grace on this campus. The teachers would do the same thing. You could walk into Dr. Strickland's office unannounced. You didn't have to have an appointment. He didn't care. And my classmates will testify, this man showed this kind of love and reception and warmth and respect to all of his students. It wasn't just us.
Awesome.
I have later on heard from them. My classmates have sent me text messages, emails, verifying and confirming that this man was real. So when I described him as a man of love, and I looked in his eyes, and I thought I was looking in the face of unconditional love, and I described it as Jesus, because that's what it was. He never judged us. He never made me feel black. He never made me feel different. He never made me feel like I needed to apologize for my race or apologize for being black. So we were treated with dignity and respect. And this college deserves for everybody to know that. And I can't change the past. Y'all can't either. We're not responsible for the injustices, and God knows there are plenty of them. But Wesleyan College was on the cutting edge, on the forefront. They were the beginning of changing things and turning it around, and I want them to get credit for doing that.
Well, I think that's just wonderful that you have shared that, and I was thinking about Dr. Strickland, and I was thinking about what the quote that my friend Dan said. He says, we must know the story. And the beautiful thing about stories, I read a lot, I watch a lot of movies, do a lot of Netflix, season 1, season 2, and season 3, that there are many chapters in stories. There are beginnings and endings, and thank you, Chris, for sharing that. That was just awesome. So, Sonia, your experience in terms of when Sonia's mother, may I tell a little story? Sonia's mother was my 5th grade teacher. You need to thank Sonia that her mother, and the thing I loved about Mrs. Thompson, she made an impression on me, and she is part of the reason I think I am who I am today. I often write about her, and I talk about it, and she kept, I would stay after school doing things. I probably was in detention, didn't know it, but she would keep me after school to do stuff, and I think that was the beginning of my leadership. So, Sonia, you came to Wesleyan College in Macon, Georgia, from Atlanta, Georgia. What was your experience like? You were a major in music? You did
Yes,
music?
I
Tell
was
us a
a
little about
music-
that. Yeah.
I was a music major, and Marvin Baldwin and I attended the same high school. And our first experience at Wesleyan was in 1966. We were participants in the Governor's Honors Program. Marvin had a 4-octave range, beautiful voice, and in addition to being talented, she had a very high intellect, very gifted girl. We decided to return after auditioning at the Governor's Honors Program. A Dr. Jeltz, a former music faculty member of Wesleyan, invited me to come back after the audition and encouraged me to come to Wesleyan. And Marvette just loved the campus. She and I both loved the campus, so we returned, and that was pretty much how we ended
up here.
at Wesleyan. Yeah, it was a very positive experience.
Okay.
Very positive that summer.
Dalena, what did you think? You were from Macon, and here
Yes.
you are over here on Forsyth Road. So tell us something about that.
Well, I had talked with my counselor, high school counselor, about attending college. That was during my junior year. And I was asking him because I knew a few students that had left from their junior year and gone to college from our high school. And so I just decided that I might want to try that, or not try that, do that. So when I went to talk to the counselor, he told me, he said, and at that time, I was 15 also, I was in 11th grade. And so he said, let me think about it, and I'll talk to you, I'll call you back to the office. So maybe about a week or so, he called me back and told me that it's a school in Macon called Wesleyan College, and they are asking these black students to come and help them integrate their students, because they've tried it before and it hadn't worked. And this came from Dr. Strickland, because he was the one that really wanted this to happen more so than anybody else. And so I came out here for the interview with them and talked to Dr. Strickland, and he said that, even at that young age, that I should be okay. After they talked to me and decided that I guess that I wasn't totally crazy, but I was a teenager. And so it was decided that we would come to Wesleyan, but there was a condition, regardless of where you live, you had to live on campus, because he had said, Dr. Strickland had said, he told us, he said, because beforehand they'd had black students to come, but they didn't stay. They were day students. They would come out here for classes, and they didn't stay. So he decided that you had to live on campus to get the full experience of it and be able to stay. So I agreed. I talked with at that time I was living with my aunt and uncle. They were raising me. So I had talked with my aunt when it just so happened she was at the same school. She was a teacher at Ballard Hudson too, so he went and talked to her too. The guidance counselor did. So we talked a little bit more about at home, and decided that if I met the criteria, that I would come out here and do, as they said, stay on campus and help with the integration And as they said, you know, when we think about integration, the only thing we were thinking about was just attending, that I was thinking about was attending for doing the classes and interacting with the students also. And so all that summer, we've been led to believe that. And we had our big sisters, they wrote us. They wrote and talked, you know, wrote us throughout the summer and was talking about Wesleyan and that type of stuff. But we had gotten to the thinking that we would be in the pool of freshmen that would just be put with a student and not, you know, just with the black students.
Okay.
But when we got to Wesleyan in August that year, we found out that the black students were with the black students.
In terms of rooming?
Yes.
In terms of roommates?
In terms of rooming.
Okay.
What they had told us didn't happen.
Okay.
And so that was okay. Didn't bother me that much. Didn't bother me. So we came and brought our clothes and started setting up our rooms, and people were looking at us and wondering where we had come from. And I can't say it was, I don't know what the looks were. I think it was maybe disbelief, because the only black people out here were the people that worked on the grounds and in the lunchroom and the kitchen that were of color. So they didn't, first I think people didn't really know why we were here. And then we told them we were going to school.
Well,
we did.
yeah. And I think that's a good part, because that's part of owning the story. And let me just say this. In everybody's family, there are stories. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on who you talk to, in my family, will be the story that you get. And so I want you to just we're owning the story, because you can't change the story if you don't own the story. And so many of us, the next class, and I just want to share this, we came in, Gail is here, she was in 74, Sherry and Rochelle there in 75. You guys paved the way for us, and I was a transfer student. And I'm just going to tell you, I came from Atlanta, urban, and I was sitting in the dining room one day, and I said to myself, as I was eating that good food, because Wesleyan had some good food, I'm telling you.
Yes, yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let me not digress. But I said to myself, this is part of knowing the story and owning the story. I said to myself, oh my God, now my story is segregated South, first white teacher, senior year in high school, all black high school, all black everything, transferred to Wesleyan from Spelman College, which is historically black college and university. I got to paint the picture for you, right? So then I come to Wesleyan College, and I'm sitting in the dining room, and I said to myself, oh my God, I have never seen this many white people before in my life. Pass me that baked potato. But anyway, so, no, seriously, because what? It is our experience, you know. It was overwhelming. Now, I didn't say anything, you know. I was just, I had to regroup, because I've just told you what my story was in terms of coming on Wesleyan campus and stuff. So everybody had a different story. So let me just ask you this. You know, we could talk about the academic stuff, because I know you all did well. You know, socially, how was life? Oh, y'all studied all the time. Oh, okay. Let me talk to Rochelle now. What did you know, what did you? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to know, because it's what? We're emotional people, we're spiritual, we're, you know, all of that, everything. Socially, how was that for you? Tell the truth.
Oh, I'm going to tell the truth. I mean, because it's too hard to remember lies, so I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell the truth. Okay. When I'd be going to class, some people would speak and some didn't, so that didn't bother me. But there are these art majors and drama majors that talk to me constantly about being at school and what I like to do and that kind of stuff. So they became my support system at school. at Wesleyan. And they even went home with me some because they had a car. So we would leave, we'd leave the campus and they would go home with me. They even went to my cousin's wedding at her house. I mean, we were inseparable. So as far as my social life, it was interesting because I had a chance to, up close and personal, see how a different race lived and thought and talked and had fun. So it had got to the point, and I'm gonna tell you this. The dean of students called me in her office, and she said, "You need to be back with your own kind." That's what she said, because I was usually with my friends. I mean, I'm a friendly sort of person, so I was with my friends, and everybody started noticing that I'd be with them, and there was some concern. So she did. She told me. She didn't ask me. She told me to go. That I need to be back with my own kind. It was causing problems. So what do y'all think I did? Yeah, because my family, like I said, had been at my house. They knew where I lived. They had been when I had things going on. They would go with me. And so my family, they knew. They always thought I was kind of strange anyway. So they continued to be my friends. And I did not tell Dr. Strickland on her that time. Because I know he would have been very disappointed, because that was not reflecting of him, because he was the one that pushed our coming. And if there was any problem, he was the one that would solve that problem, because he wanted this to work. He didn't want Wesleyan, because Mercer had, probably about maybe 4 years ahead of Wesleyan, had already integrated and had their students, black students from all over the state. So Wesleyan was behind Mercer. And of course, one advantage of that was that the Mercer boys came over here to see us. They did.
And that's how the BSA was born.
Yes.
That's how we started the BSA.
Being honest, I'll say this like I told somebody recently.
Yeah, it started.
Got involved with the BSA because the boys from Mercer would come over here, show up on this campus, cute boys.
All right. Tell us what they were doing at Mercer.
Cute boy to help us out. Now they helped us organize. We followed their lead. They would tell us, y'all need to do this, y'all need to. My part in it was just to be present. I just liked hanging out with them because, like I said, one of them had an afro out there. Look at my tear. Y'all really had that. Yeah.
I think Jesse.
I'm just telling you, they were leaders, they were sharp, they were smart, they were gentlemen. There was nothing, Hank, I can't tell you the juicy stuff that went on because we were still young girls and teenagers, but these guys were respectful to us, but we just enjoyed hanging out with them because they were men. And we didn't get to see any boys on this campus. Right. So you had to join the boys that came from, and so we established the BSA. I'm just telling you my motivation. Yes.
Sonia, how was it for you socially? You were from Atlanta.
Yes,
so.
and I dated one of the Mercer men. Yes. But what happened, they heard about the Old South Day on campus over here, and they were fed up to hear with it over there on their campus. And their reaction was, you mean to tell me they're doing that? And they've got the first 5 black students over there, and they took that over there on that campus. They drove over, they met with us, they helped us organize the very first Black Student Association. It was wonderful. And
remember?
Yeah.
My friends came to the meeting,
Right.
because it was just the 5 of us.
It was
So
just the
they
5 of
came.
us.
We needed membership.
Yeah, so they came. They sure did. They came to our meeting.
And they were very sympathetic. I had a little extra tear. And it was so nice being comforted by them.
No shame.
Yeah, but we did participate in voter registration in the city. We did things like that. They were very respectful of the campus. They didn't come over here and use our swimming pool or our athletic equipment. We would just meet. It was, and then we started the voter registration. Played pool, things of that nature.
You talking about what do we do for social time? Seriously, okay, Wesleyan had a basketball team. We didn't have one. I'm sorry, Wesleyan had basketball. I'm sorry, Mercer had the basket. We could get to go, they could get tickets and we could go to the basketball games. It was that kind of, it was social for me. We needed to get off campus. I have a girlfriend, where is Adrian? Adrian Kelly, if she's still, hi, sweetheart. I'm sorry, but this girl would ask me if I wanted to go home. She'd say, like on a Friday, on the loggia, we're on my way to class. She said, hey, ugly. That was my nickname, and I was not offended because I knew it was in love. This child is so full of love toward me. I was never offended. But now other people look at us like, what, she call you ugly? Y'all, we don't get upset about everything. We were friends. And y'all know you call your friends all kind of nicknames, and you're not upset by it. So I felt like, I look at them like, oh, she's with me, she's good, she's cool. Because I call her Red. She had this red hair and freckles all over her face. But I would get in that car, we'd ride all the way to Thomasville and never feel afraid that anything bad was going to happen to us. We weren't afraid we were going to get shot, killed, murdered, anything, because at that time, seriously, we felt safe in America to do that. This child would take me on the back roads. We were not riding on the interstate where you could see everything. We were on the back roads going through Sylvester and all those places where there were 2-lane highways where you could really get in trouble if there was some really bad people wanting to do you harm. I still believe that God was watching over us because she loved me and I loved her. We didn't mean any harm, but it was a ride home. My parents loved her. Her parents loved me. It was that kind of fellowship. And I'm just saying, we need to develop those kinds of relationships, and we did here on this campus. If you say it was out of necessity, it was. It was. We needed people. I knew isolation wasn't going to work for us because we were 5. I'm going to correct Liam real quick. I did not have the private room the entire time, though I wanted. Sonia and I we were roommates for 2 years at Jones dorm. It was awesome. We loved each other, but we chose each other. I'm still not into this thing where people just assign people to your room. I still don't think that's a good idea. I think people need to meet each other and decide who they want to room with. There was a young lady supposed to come. I was told, and this is the way I was told when I got here, because I cried and ran to the dean that night, where's my roommate? I was the odd man out. I finally realized that I was number 5. And I didn't have a roommate. I went running to her saying, what happened? My roommate didn't come, and I was in tears that night. And that's when she explained to me that there was supposed to be a girl to be in your room with you, but she changed her mind at the last minute and didn't come. Y'all, I left it alone, forgot all about it, didn't care about it, because I went ahead and made other friends. Connie Holloway and I roomed together. Remember Connie? They call her a hippie, but she was a kind, wonderful soul who she and I met each other and started getting along. Connie played the guitar. Anyway, she became my roommate for that semester now, and she, I think, later transferred. But I'm just saying we began to make relationships on our own. It wasn't the end of the world, and I never thought that young lady changed her mind because I was black. I'm being honest with you. That never occurred to me until now.
You know, things have really changed because if my roommate didn't show up, we would be glad. I wouldn't be crying to the day. You'd be like, yes, I don't have a roommate today. So that just shows how things have changed. That is really great because it sounds like, and one of the things that we talked about on Thursday night was the importance during the change of Wesleyan. Wesleyan's story is a great story. It's a long story, 1836 So during the change of Wesleyan, a lot of changes, and then in 68, another major change. But the key thread for us, as we said the other night, was the importance of building community. And that's what it sounds like what you guys did. You built community, or if you didn't build, I told someone, if you don't have community, then you start community. You know, that's what you need to do. So I just want to ask you, how you've kind of talked about some of your support. What were your family? How did you, Christine, you already said how your mother encouraged you. And I think I was reading something on the web page when President Ruth Knox brought you guys back to celebrate the 40. Someone talked about, they were thinking about leaving. I think it was Carolyn McClendon was talking about leaving. They looked in their mother's eyes and they saw the disappointment that she would have had. So what would you say to a student today who said, you know what, I've had enough, I can't do Wesleyan for whatever reason? What would you say to that person today to you know, keep going, stay? What would you say? I want to hear from each of you. So, Delia.
Real quick, I'll take it, and I'm gonna be brief, because I was talking to the little girl on the cart about this. My mom was one of those people, and I did go through that stage. I'm leaving Wesleyan. I'm gonna quit. I'm not coming back. I'm not going to that school anymore. I want out. We went through that first year. My mom is one of those women, nurturing, loving. God bless her. I love her to this day. She said, sure, you can come on home. I'll send you a ticket. And when I send you that ticket, it's going to be a one-way ticket. And you can get a job at the Plaza Cafe washing dishes. I said, gee, Mom, I changed my mind.
Okay. Sonia, you take it. You know, what kept you
Yes,
going?
I intentionally, one quarter, came up with this plot that I was going to deliberately get poor grades and that my parents would insist that I come home. It backfired. My mother came and talked to Dr. Strickland. She told him about my IQ, and I had to
Get yourself
stop it.
together.
I got it together and did what I was supposed to do and demonstrated that I was capable of doing the work. That was my plot. I called myself, I was going to flunk out of Wesleyan. Didn't work.
I don't know how they do it now, but you cannot flunk out of Wesleyan.
They would get you some help.
You cannot flunk out of Wesleyan. Can you flunk out now? Y'all ain't gonna tell it. Yeah, but they're not gonna just let you do it. Somebody's gonna come and talk to you and find out what's the problem and what's going on and what can we do. Is that how they still do? Okay, so okay, Wesleyan isn't fake about that. Nor are they fake about the honor code.
You said what? I'm sorry.
No, the honor code.
Okay.
They're serious about it. Serious, okay? I didn't ever have to deal with it, but I saw other people. Woo.
Wow.
They are not playing by that honor code.
Y'all still have curfew?
No curfew.
Oh, seriously? You see, but y'all got it better than we had to have curfew. Y'all don't have curfew?
No.
Y'all, I'm serious.
Listen, I think they had a curfew when we were here, but we didn't have a curfew. Absolutely. So it sounds like you just okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, but it sounds like what I'm gathering from this conversation, even though the faces are different, the stories are different, the experiences are different in a story that have somehow sat in a larger story of a women's college, that the struggle is pretty much the same. It's impacted by different things. It was impacted by the fact that we were different. It was impacted by the fact that you were black women who came to get an education, basically. But as Tanya said, it changed history. and history was in the making. And I was also reading in the archives about when schools were opening up and places were being integrated, that Wesleyan never had to change its charter or anything because it did not have a discriminatory policy in place. It was not in place. Now, you have to interpret that however you want to interpret it, but it was not in place, so there was nothing to change ever for the institution. So the challenge becomes for all of us, know the story, what? Own the story, and do what? And change the story. That is so important. Now, here's our other question, and I don't know whether we're opening up for questions, or we're just going to close. Just 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead. Oh, Lord. Okay. Oh, yes, please, let's say that. Okay, so here's the thing also that I had to learn, that diversity, just because we are both African-American women, we are different. We're still diverse. Our experiences are different. So I met Rochelle. I was a transfer student, and I'm coming from Atlanta. Sherry's from Atlanta. Rochelle, raise your hand. Rochelle. So yes. So I'm coming from Atlanta. I'm coming from, urban Atlanta, everything, historically black high schools and everything. So Rochelle's on campus. She's from Nebraska. And she's living in Hightower. And I said to somebody, I don't know, Sherry, it might have been you. I don't know. I know it wasn't Gail because she goes home for the weekend. So anyway, Gail's in the back. Anyway, that's another good story too. But I said, who is this black girl always hanging with these white people? I really did say it, y'all, for real. I said it. Yeah, I did. And I just because every time I see her, that's who she's with. Okay, I want you to get the point of this story. So I got to know her. I was like, oh, she's from Nebraska. And so these are her people. I didn't say, okay. Oh, yeah. And so here's the other part of the story. So one weekend we go to Atlanta, and those of you who are familiar with, if you know anything about Atlanta, it's the Atlanta University Center, Morehouse, Spelman, Morris Brown, AU Center, historically black. So she went home with me, and we went to a game. And honey, we went to a game. And Rochelle said, Felicia, I've never seen this many black people ever before in my life. I was like, yeah, so now you know how I feel. So you see the point of that story, that even though we were both African-American women, our experiences were so different. Our stories were different. But here's the beauty of this. I didn't let the fact that she was from Nebraska and hanging with those white girls in Hightower stop me from getting to know who she was. And so I think that's what we have to do. Build relationships, break barriers, have honest conversations with one another. And then can I just throw this little big piece? This is just a little story, y'all. You know, my friends know me. I can be a little messy, but this is a little story. So Rochelle, Michael, raise your hand. My husband's in the audience. See, it's a reason why I love Wesleyan. You need to hear this story because this will give you hope for the future. And know that, yes, things are going to get better. So Gail Murphy, raise your hand in the back, Gail. Gail introduced me to my husband reluctantly. She said, Wesleyan's a good place. He is not your type. He probably would be better with Rochelle. She didn't say it like that, but that's what. So Rochelle came home with me for the weekend. Wesleyan is a great place now. Don't. She came home with me for the weekend to go on a blind date with my husband, 47 years of marriage. And the first time, this is why God is always at, oh, I feel like preaching. This is the first time where God is always at work around you. I answered the door to this man who I didn't know would be my husband. And I said, Rochelle will be out in a minute because they were going on a blind date. Now, they said the blind date was tied. It did, It didn't work. They don't even remember the blind date. But anyway, so about a year later, Michael gave us a ride to school back here at great old Wesleyan, Hell Wesleyan. And when I got out the car, no cell phones, I said, Gail, you could tell I've been a mess all my life. I said, Gail, give that boy my phone number. And she just, at some point, never would. And then we graduated. He finished Morehouse. I finished Wesleyan. And then one day, he must have got my phone number. He called me, and he said, what are you doing home? And I said, I don't know how to drive. Still not driving. Rochelle drove me down here. I know how to drive, but I don't like to drive. And so he said, I'll teach you how to drive. And sisters, we've been riding ever since. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm just telling you. Okay, all right. We're gonna take some. I just thought relationships. You got one more.
I don't want y'all to think that there wasn't any little bumps in the road when we first came out here, because I told more Thursday than I'm saying now to the group that was in there with us Thursday night. But I did have, I don't know if they did, but I had people asking me questions like, I didn't know the bottom of your feet were white. Yeah, and I think one of us was pressing their hair, and they said, what is that smell? And I said, she's pressing her hair. Why is she doing that? I just, I would get tired of them. I'd tell them, y'all have to ask her.
Yeah, I mean, because it's exposure, relationships, and that's why we have to stay connected. I'm telling you. We have to stay connected. And I'm good with everybody, but just don't put your hand in my hair. That's all I'm saying. So, no, we do that even after. Okay, time out. Yes. Okay, so. All right, so thank you. All right, yeah.
And and then we'd have girls. I'd have girls. I don't know about anybody else. They asked me, they said, my mama told me not to have nothing to do with y'all. But y'all all right. I said, yeah, we are. It was just as the Reverend was saying, that they had been told, some of the young ladies that were in our dorm had been told not to have anything to do with us, but they didn't ever know why. I mean, the parents said, don't you have nothing to do with them. You just don't have nothing to do with them. And after a period of time, the young ladies out in the dorms, they saw we hadn't killed anybody. We didn't have no bodies in our rooms. And we took baths, and we took showers, and we were clean. So they started wondering, what were they supposed to be aware of so much?
Changing the story.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that. Can we give them a round of applause? Yes. And also, no? Yeah. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we close out, we will take just 5 or less questions, 3, average or whatever. I know you all have lots of questions, and when they reference something about Thursday night sharing, we invited them to talk up close and personal with the students. It was open for all students to come, and so they had conversations with the students, and it was hilarious. Can I just look some highlights from that? They do not know who they found out that our students don't know who the singer Cher is. And y'all know I laughed so hard. We were like, Cher, they were like, Cher who? I mean, it's hilarious. So when we're talking about the different diversities, the generational differences, the cultural differences, you guys, I was laughing because I'm somewhere in the middle between them and our current students, and I'm like, come on, Cher, you know Cher? They were like, no. I was like, okay, never mind, I feel old now. So anyway, at this point, one of our alums, Hannah, is going to be bringing the microphone out. So if you have a question for anyone on the panel, please ask and raise your hand now so that we can go ahead and get the questions in before we close out. Anyone with questions?
I was just curious what your thoughts and reactions were when Wesleyan first reached out to you recently to talk about honoring you and recognizing your contributions.
Back in 2009.
Can you give the microphone?
Okay, back in 2009 was the first time since 1972 that Wesleyan had tried to honor us. And that was because of the person that was over the Lane Center was a woman of color. And she wondered, her question was, what happened to the first black students that were here? She gave us the name, the first 5. Where are they? And so why don't they participate or come out here or do anything? Or why she had all these why questions. So she went out in the community in Macon and found me and Carolyn, found us, and she found the other three. Yeah. And she wanted to honor us for what had happened during those 4 years, because when we graduated, nothing was said. I mean, like nothing.
It was 37 years later. I'll never forget it, because I was 19 when I left here and 56 when I set foot back on the field. And I felt weird. And now I promise you, I cried. Oh, I'm sorry, but it was 37 years, because I was 56 years old when I set foot. And I was a bit, I'm going to say, I had very mixed feelings about it, because I felt that they had forgotten about us. I felt forgotten, and I was deeply hurt that we had been ignored for that length of time. I absolutely prayed about it. It was very much on my heart. I kept wondering, why didn't we hear from anybody? And the prayer finally got answered, because I really wanted to connect to this place. And I felt so empty, and I felt alone, and I felt that we had been forgotten. And God had moved on Rhonda Barnes, and that's why she's one of my heroes, because Rhonda wanted us to come back here and talk to people, inspire them. She wanted us to come and share to the students. She did, and she was the one, and I cried on the phone with her, and it was hard for me to come back here that time. It really was, because I was disconnected, and I was lost for a while, and we lost touch with everybody. But thank God she brought us back, and I felt, yeah, and so.
I'm from class of 71, and I guess I just want to say that I am so glad that she thought to invite y'all back, and I'm so glad that I graduated with Rochelle and Sherry Love, and I know Brenda's Roberts and a lot of students. And I was coming through high school when integration happened in the panhandle of Florida. And I just want to say that my father, who was a huge champion of integration, when he found out I could get a scholarship to Wesleyan from my guidance counselor talking to me, and I came from a little old rural area, and we had just integrated in 67, 68, and I came to Wesleyan in 71, and my dad, like I said, was a big champion of that, but I'm not saying that to glorify him. It's that he told my mother, I don't know if she needs to go to that school. And my mother said, why? And she's getting a scholarship, blah, 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 blah. And my dad said, because I don't see enough faces of color at that school. He looked at all their literature and so on, and he said, and I don't know that I want my daughter to attend there. So he was so happy when I did come, and he saw faces of color here. Not very many at first, but it made him feel better that I was going to get what he considered an appropriate education. I just wanted to say that.
So we have heard the story, know the story. We have owned, or we are owning the story. And clearly we have changed, and we are changing the story. I want to say to you, I am humbled by your presence, Marvette's presence, Carolyn's presence, each of your presence for being here. And I want to say this to each of you. If you are we're going to start with their class, the class of 72. Are you here, stand? If any of you are here, would you stand up? Just stand up for a minute. Yes. Remain standing. If you are in a class before 72, would you stand? I got a reason for this. Would you stand? Yes, give them a hand. If you are in a class after 72, would you stand? Christine, Sonia, Dalena, Marvette, Carolyn, these are your sisters. And we are here because many of them came before you and came after you. And those who came after you, we are here because of you, each of us. So can you give them a hand and give yourself a hand? Thank you. God bless you. You can, as we say in church, you can do the better that. Yes. Yes. I want to do your book sign. Okay, Charlene. You may be seated.
Except Charlene.
Charlene? Where's Charlene? Oh, yes.
This is my heroine.
I met Charlene yesterday.
This woman, powerful
Bishop
woman of God.
Charlene.
I would go to her room.
I can't hear you.
I would go to her room, knock on that door, and just talk about anything with her. Everything. She became my big sister on this campus. And the other day when I saw you for the first time and hugged you, and I said this to you, and I'm going to say it to your face to everybody, you are my sister. And I mean sister in every sense of that word. This woman would grab my hand. She'd listen to me first. And y'all know 15-year-olds make a big issue out of everything. If I got a B and didn't like it, I'd run to her crying. But anyway, she would always make time for me. And she would grab my hands and say, Christine, after listening, she said, let's pray. Let's pray. That had a big impact on the direction that my life was going to take.
All right. And so we want to encourage you. Christine has a book, and she's going to have a book signing on the chapel lawn. And after this, the BSA are meeting, gather here, and are gathering here afterwards. It's 50th anniversary for them, and we want to encourage those of you. As you know, Nadja talked about the Sisters of the First Five Award that we are so excited that Wesleyan has connected us, and we're connecting together, and it's an opportunity to do that. And it's also an opportunity for you to join Sisters of the First Five, all right? It's open. It's open, and if you want to know more about that, you could actually go to our Facebook page. And if you don't have a Facebook, ask your grandchild or grandson of somebody to say, I want to join this group, Sister of the First Five. Can you show me? Because see, we only, this age, everybody's not doing Facebook, you know, but we are. And so we want to say that, and we want to just say thank you for coming. I just was trained, honor is due where honor is due. You gave a wonderful testimony, and that is Bishop Charlene. Would you, I'm sorry, I'm just going to give you your prop. Would you stand again? I just have to do it. I just have to do it, retired. I was just trained to do that, and so we connected yesterday. I believe it was divinely meant that I would sit at the table with her. And so, President Fowler, thank you as well. Yes, you have supported us. You have been on Zoom calls with us. You have supported us. You went all the way with us this week. And I want to say a special thank you to you for your leadership, for your vision, for your insight as well. This has been a great reunion. It closes out tomorrow. Yeah, and then we are done, unless y'all want to hear a sermon or solo or something like that. Okay. Well, I am done, and just good evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Check out Christine's books and buy a copy, autograph, or check out the things with the BSA, and just do what you do. Thank you.